Thursday, September 5th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. The school year is underway, and with it, annual calls for drivers to slow down and pay extra attention out there on the roads. Here's a question for you. What do you think about road safety in this province? Should we build better drivers, build better roads? Both? Neither? The lines are open. All right, Newfoundland and Labrador Road Safety Show. What are your thoughts on it? I was looking through some tweets, preparing for, do they call them X's now? Anyways, preparing for the show today. From the RNC, let me see. Earlier this week, obviously, it was the be extra cautious in school zones, reduce your speed, obey the posted speed limits. Fines for speeding in school zones are double that of a regular speeding ticket. Failing to stop for a crossing guard can cost you 2 demerit points and an associated fine. So that was from the RNC. September 1st, a 53-year-old man charged with impaired in paradise around 10 p.m. at night. August 30th, the RNC tweeted 4-hour span this afternoon, 48 tickets on the TCH, 4 vehicles impounded, excessive speeds ranging from 151 to 165 kilometers an hour. Another one from the other day, August 28th, Team Guizhou Highway, driver caught doing 145 in an 80. Again, as I was preparing for the show today, also remembered I was filling on the St. John's Morning Show earlier in the summer. Did an interview with Fire Chief Dwayne Antle, Come By Chance Fire Department, talking about people speeding through accident scenes, talking about distracted drivers. So all of this is to paint the picture of some of the driving stuff that will stick out when it comes to the roads of this province. There's tons of examples. So again, the question, what do you think about road safety in this province? Is it drivers that need to be better, roads need to be better? Is it a design thing? Is it all of it? I want your thoughts. 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206, or emails thesignal@cbc.ca. Joining me now, and these two folks will be with us for the full show, the full 5 minutes. Amanda Power, a parent and advocate for safer streets, and Miles Russell, civil engineering technologist and director. Streets are for people. How you both doing?
Good, thank you.
Absolutely fantastic.
All right, so to jump off with the discussion, what do you think about road safety in this province? And yes, we can really drill into it through the course of the show as we take calls and texts and emails from everyone. But just first glance, that question, a succinct answer to jump things off with. What do you think?
Unsafe.
Yeah, it's pretty succinct.
As a mother,
yeah,
it's actually very worrisome that the lack of care of drivers, not even like the young ones, all drivers were more self-involved, I guess, than we used to be. And it's just lack of awareness, like you're really not focusing on driving this.
Yeah, the task at hand of driving.
Yeah, like you're supposed to focus. 2 hands on the wheel, look at your surroundings. And I just find that the basics are being forgotten, and everybody seems to be in a rush to go nowhere, regardless of who's in front of them, who's crossing the road, on the side of the road, anything.
Miles.
And to pair, the reason is generally bad engineering and CAFE regulations leading to larger vehicles. Those two things, you pair distracted driving and bad design from the 1970s, those two things lead to people able to speed easily, speed anywhere they want. Distractions are haphazard now. Vehicles coming with 15-inch touchscreens. People have smartphones on, the smartwatches, devices, people in the car talking to them. Driving is a complicated task. We all take it for granted. And the way we build our environment allows us to be reckless. Simple as that.
This time of year, so school's back, right? I don't know if you've noticed, folks, but there's some construction out there on the roads. I'm just looking at the just outside on the Parkway in St. John's. Folks going slowly by, a construction zone all around. Like there's line painting, plus the regular just traffic and everything else that you get when you're driving a vehicle. If you're not paying attention, really, really bad things can happen. And especially when you throw everything else into the mix. And a summer of I noticed like the difference of driving here just to CBC, right? So last week or the week before, end of summer, like driving, I'm like, oh, this is, even with some of the construction, it's like, yeah, it's not too bad. And then this week happens, and you're just like, oh, wow, it is a whole different type of a driving experience. Now think about Newfoundland and Labrador and how we all are. Right. 1970s, you said?
Yeah, so essentially, when America and Canada decided, America built the interstate system, Canada followed suit shortly after Trans-Canada expansions in the 1960s. The design regulations didn't really exist back then, so they made them up. They made them up on a bunch of standards on stopping distance of vehicles, sight lines, but everything was vehicle-driven based on the time and the style of vehicles back then. Vehicles have changed immensely since then, but we haven't changed the standards. We build things different throughout time. We aren't building old, knob and spool electrical systems. But something like vehicle design and road design hasn't really changed, though the world we're in is much different.
Why haven't things changed then?
Precedence and laziness. I don't want to say laziness. There needs to be a push from some regulating agency, and it needs to be a will of the people to get them to do this, to say slow vehicles down. The roads are too unsafe. Can we do something about it? And there's not enough. I don't think there's enough will in people to sacrifice. The big thing comes down to, if we want to slow vehicles, we're slowing vehicles. That's all vehicles. So a 25-minute commute might turn to a 28-minute commute, but it'll be twice as safe. An hour-long drive across the island might turn to an hour 4, an hour 5 minutes. People need to accept a little bit of slow for a lot more safety, and that's, I think, a hard sell for a lot of people. We all take the speed to get around the city for granted, and there's a lot of psychological studies that show when people are impeded at all, their perceived speed is what makes them angry. So if they can't go fast and they think they can, they get angry and they get more aggressive.
You're listening to The Signal full call-in show today. Here's what we're asking. What do you think about road safety in this province? Should we build better drivers, build better roads? Both? Neither? I want your thoughts on this. The numbers to call, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206, or email us, thesignal@cbc.ca. And speaking of emails, got this one from Michael Bennett. Hi, Adam. He sent this in earlier. He said, I'm on a hike, or going to be on a hike lunchtime, so I'm emailing you now. Well, thank you, Michael, even though you're not hearing this. My question is, what does Newfoundland and Labrador, what doesn't the government put rumble strips on the shoulder and center line of our TCH right across the province? Nova Scotia has them. Rumble strips would save lives. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
Yes, yes and no. Like, rumble strips are there for an alertness control thing. If you're already speeding and already losing control of your vehicle, a rumble strip doesn't do much. Rumble strips are essentially for drowsiness protection.
Yeah.
Also, in our climate, rumble strips in Nevada, perfectly fine. Halifax and Nova Scotia area, I'd say, is also fairly inclement, but Newfoundland and Avalon, Burin are specific types of bad weather. They do need to be drained correctly. And they do crack up. They do cause, basically, you're punching into an already limited asphalt surface with a hole. You make them more damaged. You're allowing a deeper intrusion into water, and that causes freeze thaws, cracks. It's going to lead to degradation. So there's some negatives to it.
Thank you. I did not know that. Amanda, what's this like been this week when it comes to your neck of the woods, your neighborhood? School's back. What's it been like observing it?
I think the people in my neighborhood now know who I am. So, like, when I'm out putting my kids on the bus, they're less reluctant this year to speed past this big yellow vehicle with red flashing lights and all the safety mechanisms on it.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't take an extra, like the flashing lights and the stop sign on the bus should be more than enough. But to remind folks, because Elizabeth Witten wrote a story on it, and I think Arlette Lazarenko did a story with you in the spring around in May. Yeah. Remind folks about what you're speaking out on.
So what I was speaking out of in May, and continue to do so with the city and the provincial government, who both need to take ownership of the speed issues that we have. It's not just one level of government, it's both, and they need to cooperate. But what I was speaking up on was that myself and my neighbors videotaped 20, 30 cars passing obviously stopped school buses with the red lights on, the front bar. Kids were sometimes crossing the street to get on it, and they just went by. We did get some tickets, and some of those people did go to court and try to fight it, but
what happened?
It's on video.
Yeah. So
which I didn't realize that if you pass a bus, they'll issue the ticket. Yeah. But you don't know that you're on video until you show up at the court to fight it.
Wow.
So if it's on video.
Sounds pretty embarrassing, actually.
Well, you know,
just to be honest on that one.
You
show up at court, I'm not going to fight this. Well, we have video. Oh.
Yeah, like they don't know until they get there, which I was like, wow, okay, good to know. I won't be passing a school bus. But that started this, I guess, like quest to make our roads safer. And I mean, it was just me by myself for a while with my neighbor. And people don't want to speak up. They don't want their names out there. And I'm at the point where my kids' lives are more important than my name in somebody else's mouth, whether it be good or bad. And I was at the school yesterday, just happened to go over, and it's Lark Hall and Learysbrook. And you're talking about 15 buses for those two schools. Buses for Lark Hall cannot pull off the street, so the kids load and unload next to a crosswalk. The city stated that the bus had to be back 6 meters. They got a speed sign there, so the bus can't actually move. Like, there's not enough room for the 1.6 busing rule, which appreciative. Everybody can get to school safely, we hope. But there's no room. You put all this into effect, but you didn't plan for how they were going to get home. So like yesterday, watching the buses, kids crossing the road, crosswalks blocked. There's speed bumps on Vinicombe, but there's nothing in front of the schools to slow traffic. There's zero. The crossing guard. If a car is coming, that crossing guard's not going to stop them. You cannot see kids there. So like, I don't understand why all school zones don't have the same set standards of safety.
Yeah, and what you're getting at too. So we've got a design thing and we've got a behavior thing, right? Let's go to the phones. We've got someone waiting on the line. Dr. Brace is on the line. Hi, how's it going?
Oh, hello there. Going well, thank you.
Thank you for the call.
No problem. I just pulled off the side of the road here in Trans-Canada on my way to Bay Roberts. I go back and forth a lot. It's like I have, we'll call it a summer place out there, and I was born out that way. But I live in St. John's. But I was thinking about this issue for a while. There's a couple of things I'm going to add. I heard the discussion there about school buses and videotape. When I lived in Ontario, for at one point in time, they came up with a solution, as far as I'm concerned, completely solved this whole speeding thing. Completely solved it, certainly for me. What was it called? Photo radar. Now, people were outraged. It was an intrusion into their human rights, and there was people who advocated against it, to the point where they took it away. But I'll tell you, when you get a picture of you driving your vehicle, dated, you can see yourself in the vehicle, and with an accompanying ticket, and somebody points off, you realize you're not getting away with it. You're not going to get away with it. So something like that. Now, why was that taken away? That was taken away largely, you tell me, there was someone lobbying hard that didn't like photo radar. They had it for a very short period of time. I think it was 100% for me, because I'm just a typical person. If the going on to Bay Roberts, if the speed limit is 100, I usually go 115. Yeah. I think that's true of a lot of people, eh? So, it brings it down to normality. And these cameras are everywhere, and it doesn't hurt. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to mention was total negligence. And you talk about design of highways. Does anyone remember the famous ruts? The ruts in the road that we actually tolerated, to the point where they put up signs, beware of ruts? Well, I was one of the unfortunate ones that hydroplaned.
Wow.
Coming down by what was it, Avondale, there in that basin. Completely lucky to have survived it. Flipped the car, went over, driving reasonably normally, probably doing my 110, if you know what I mean. But I mean, government actually chose to put up signs saying, beware of ruts, a permanent sign, rather than address it. So you got two issues there. You got the natural tendency for people to push the limit. I mean, you see these people, like, they're going in and out, passing, kind of digging in and out. They can't stay still. They can't stay still. And you come to, say, an intersection or a light, and there they are right in front of you again after all that effort. Anyway, just my little 2 cents worth, in particular the photo radar. I think lives are worth more than the little bit of privacy you might think, or autonomy you might think you're losing because of, well, really what it comes down to is fierce monitoring. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. Just thought I'd throw that little bit in.
I appreciate both of them, and thanks for pulling over, for making the call, and safe driving, Dr. Brace. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Wayne Brace there. TCH pulled over. You can hear the traffic just outside. You're listening to The Signal, full call-in today's show. What do you think about road safety in this province? Should we build better drivers, build better roads? The numbers to call, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206. Email thesignal@cbc.ca. 2 guests with me in studio: Amanda Power, a parent who's advocated for Safer Streets in her neighborhood of Kimmout Terrace, and Miles Russell, a civil engineering technologist and director of Streets Are for People. And to build on what Wayne Brace was just telling us there, I mentioned this before on the show. My wife is from South Korea. When I go there on vacation, I do some driving on the highways with my in-laws, and all through that country on the highways, they've got photo radar I think it's like every 5 kilometers. And I tell you, I don't see there what I see in the highways when I drive here. And that's just an observation. I don't know anything beyond that, but I will just say that we do have, there's someone else on the line. But before I go to the phones again, I just want to check with my guests. Any thoughts on what Wayne was saying there?
So I did have a conversation with Minister Studley about photo radar cameras on buses, because Ontario did implement that. It's been implemented in other provinces, but I'm being told it's federal regulations and cost. So I don't know what the cost of a child's life is, but to me it's more than the cost of installing better safety measures on our school buses.
Miles Russell.
I am a big proponent of average speed cameras, because point speed cameras are a thing where someone goes, aha, the camera's there. You can log it on Google. It shows up on Apple Maps.
Yeah.
Up in Ontario, you go to somewhere even like New York, you can open up the maps and it tells you where there's a speed trap.
Yeah.
Average speed cameras are way different. You can put an average speed camera 6 or 7 across the whole province, and you would basically be saying there's no physical way to get from, say, Gander to St. John's faster than 3 hours and 26 minutes. If you do it in 3 hours and 21 minutes, you were speeding, average ticket speed calculated. That way you catch because let's say you put it on, there was talks about on the Veterans Highway going to Bay Roberts Carbonear. All that would happen is what you see during speed traps. People are doing 120, 140, 160, come near a speed trap, slow down to 100, speed up again.
Yep.
So I love average speed cameras. They solve a big crisis or a big issue with point speed camera detection.
I didn't even know those existed.
But I do think buses should definitely have speed cameras on them. That'd be nice to be able to take it from bus.
Right on. Yeah. Let's go to the phone lines. We got Eric on the line from St. John's. Hi, Eric.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. Listen, I just want to make a couple of observations. I joined the program late, so it may have been mentioned, but you know what the biggest problem I see in St. John's and on the highway? I am retired. I can get in my car all day long. I do not see one patrol car. I remember one morning I took my wife to work, and there was one patrol car. I almost went blind with the brake lights because everybody saw this police officer, and he said, oh, I better obey the rules. And I never see him. I can drive 6 hours. I can go to Carbonear, and I never see a police car. Now, a policeman said to me, he said, yeah, you may not see me, but I see you. Well, you're not supposed to ambush people. You're supposed to let people know you're there, and you've got to be a good boy or girl, and everything will be fine. But it never happens. All day long, I see no police. Now, I saw a fender bender the other day, and I counted 4 police cars. A fender bender. But I never see police patrolling like we used to years ago.
What do you think, Eric? What do you think about driving culture in Newfoundland and Labrador? Yes, I mean, there's the case you're making for more of a police presence, and there could be conversations around staffing numbers and where we are with work shortages and whatever else when it comes to recruitment for the RNC or the RCMP and everything else. But at the bottom line, when it comes to driving culture in Newfoundland and Labrador, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts on that, sir, are this. I was told by a lot of people that Newfoundlanders are the most courteous drivers in Canada. Well, if we are the most courteous, I would hate to go to the mainland. I can't believe. And another thing, too, I know this is probably getting beyond what the topic is about.
That's okay.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you how many times I drove in St. John's and almost I got sick from the smell of marijuana from the car ahead of me.
Yeah, and this comes. Look, that is part of the driving discussion, right? Like I mentioned at the start, of the show, I mentioned like an impaired bit, but any type of impairment for driving that is obviously directly related to safer streets and highways of Newfoundland and Labrador. And it like you can just look at the police reports overnight. It is a massive issue still.
Yeah, and that's correct. And like I say, I think I believe that the figures is 400 police officers in just St. John's alone. Now that could be way off the mark. I don't know.
Okay.
But where are they? I mean, I never see them. And I'm at the parking lot here now, and I saw a young fella just leave while I was waiting to be taken, and he left half his tire behind because he stepped on the gas, and the rubber's all still there.
Yeah, right.
I think it's such an easy fix to say, "Hi, I'm a police officer, RCMP or RNC. Here I am. Be a good boy, and everybody will be happy." Simple as that.
Eric, I appreciate your call.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Oh, anytime. Cheers. Eric, they're calling from St. John's. You're listening to The Signal and building on that question, right? So Eric's making the point there should be more of a police presence, and I'm sure there's also bigger discussions on that for Newfoundland and Labrador. But the question for you today, what do you think about road safety in this province? Should we build better drivers, build better roads? As Eric was saying, have more of a police presence. If you want to join the discussion, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206. Emails, thesignal@cbc.ca. Here with me in studio, Amanda Power, parent who's advocated for safer streets, and Miles Russell, a civil engineering technologist, director of Streets Are for People. Streets are for people, Miles. I thought streets were for cars. What are you talking about?
They used to be for people, even in St. John's.
There we go.
I was actually looking at some historical mapping in St. John's just the weekend, and we used to have streetcars. You know that St. John's in the 1960s had buses that ran every 3 minutes downtown? 3 minutes we had buses.
Impossible.
In absolutely wild. And then the number of buses stayed the same, and the city grew 40 times larger.
There you go.
We had just almost as many buses in 1960s as we do in 2024. And, options, if someone hears me say, "Oh, average speed camera, you're going to slow me down." Yeah, sure. But we also need to have safer streets. You talk about like where Amanda's up in the area of Great Eastern and the Ladysmith. Great Eastern, you can land an airplane on. You can legitimately land a Cessna like 704 on that road. It's wide enough. There's no intrusions. There's no power lines. And it's straight. And it's at the same grade as a runway.
So what does that do if you've got something that you could land a Cessna on when it comes to vehicles? What have you been noticing, Amanda?
On Great Eastern especially, like I don't live on that street. I live on the other main drag, which has many blind hills on it. And that, thankfully, Ladysmith has speed bumps now, which people are like, "Oh, it slows me down." I was like, but it saves my child's life. So, it's risk versus benefit.
I mean, it's a speed bump,
but
whatever.
Great Eastern, oh my God. Great Eastern is horrible. It also needs speed bumps. I have emailed the city, and our counselor that is currently on council, he is working with us, but we're hitting roadblocks from the traffic department effectively. But there is a 1.5 kilometer stretch there of straightaway. So you get these cars that are bypassing Kenmount Road because they don't want to go through the lights. Well, we'll just go through this little quiet subdivision. And they will legitimately go between 80 and 100 down that because you can tell if there's a police car or if there's anything down there. So, like, the streets in Kenmount Terrace, they designed them. They didn't plan for, I guess, the population growth it has. And now the city is playing catch up to make it safer. But I feel like I'll be in an old age home by the time they actually catch up to making it safe to fix, because I feel the blame is poor planning. It was very poorly planned. The streets are not neighborhood streets. They're meant to be main thoroughfares, and everything that They say they're feeder streets. Well, I provided them with a 19-page report on feeder streets and how stop signs, three-way stops, make it more effective. It would congest it. People would not want to go through there. You put speed bumps there. Lower the speed limit like they do in Mount Pearl and Paradise, where it's 40 if you're not on like Topsail Road, which is 50, or Kenmount Road, which is 50 or 60. Nope. They will not acknowledge an email. Tom Davis will, and Sheila O'Leary. The mayor has yet to acknowledge. And I have emails from 2017 from Stephen Fagan at the traffic department saying it was on me to go door to door. But why do we have a traffic department if you're expecting the residents to calm the streets themselves? Like, you're going to have people putting nail strips out there. There's more accidents up there. There's so many new Canadians. There's so many small kids. And 2 crosswalks, not lit. We're windy, we're foggy, we're rainy, and you got the streets made like racetracks.
And the civil engineering technologist next to you has been nodding and doing some silent claps. Can you continue on this? But we're going to go to the phones briefly because we've got the Mayor of CBS we're going to get to just in a second. But I would just like a little bit more from you on just thoughts around everything Amanda was saying.
So that is, as the city will tell you, a collector road. And that has a certain dimension to it. Yeah. And the dimension for that road is unnecessary as it has on-street parking. But the lanes themselves, we could literally I could talk about this for just a day itself. But in the long story short, the city's going to give information about like fire trucks need access, Class 2 trucks. That's not accurate. You can do chicanes for a couple $1,000s with temporary objects to force a slowdown. Do that every couple hundred meters.
What are chicanes?
Basically, what happens is you go towards a spot, and now all of a sudden you have to turn left, right, left. You do a zigzag. It's a zigzag. So you don't see that in St. John's because St. John's doesn't actually have a real comprehensive from the development regulations and engineering standards. We do not have any actual traffic policy that actually calms traffic. They're a car department, not a movement of people department. Okay. So there's no situation where they want to slow cars down at all, and that's the problem. The problem is we got to slow cars down a little bit to make it safer and easier for other methods to take over.
Let's go to CBS. So Conception Bay South. Well, I grew up there. It's also home to approximately 5,000 students, 9 schools stretching from one end to the other. Second largest municipality in Newfoundland and Labrador. Pretty busy roads. That main one's pretty busy for sure. New school year. So you've had the mayor of Conception Bay South out talking about what like we've been talking about today, right? Road safety, being extra vigilant, paying more attention, especially in school areas. But enough about me talking. Let's get Mayor Darren Bent to talk for himself. Mayor Bent, thanks for coming on the program.
Oh, thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me. And I think somebody said they could talk for a day about this. I could talk about this for days and days. I think that, awareness and talk is all good, but, the message has got to get through to people, especially the drivers, to make it work. But it's great we got somebody on from engineering as well, because we deal with people in that business all the time to talk about, what's the best way forward and for safety. And unfortunately, the way many of our roads have been designed in the past, like they said, makes it difficult going forward. But there are answers, and you do your best to work towards some of them.
When you come out for the start of school, I mean, like everyone does it, it's a yearly thing. But the fact that as the mayor of Conception Bay South, you come out and you're like, hey, there's a bit of a campaign. We've got the folks from the RNC here. We've got others talking about people paying more attention. If everyone's kind of driving properly and paying attention and not speeding, you don't have to come out and do this. What's the reality in CBS for safety on the roads from what you're observing as a parent, as the mayor, as someone who lives in this community?
Yeah, and I think it's the same everywhere. I think people tend to drive as they feel safe to drive. Unfortunately, that is too fast in a lot of occasions. You take part of our town has 4-lane highway right through the middle of it in part of it, and that lends itself to speeding as well. Now, that's a provincial road, but it goes right past a couple of elementary schools, and, that poses its own problem. We had the RNC out last year in May, because we meet with them and talk with them about the concerns, and speeding is really right at the top of the list. And they did, I think, 32 tickets in an elementary school zone within about 2 hours. Wow. Now, it's not just, and that's the other thing, it's not just that it happens within that 2 hours. It happens all the time.
Yeah, that's just a snapshot of if that's 2 hours, imagine the other 24/7, right?
Right, exactly right. And and anything that we can do to raise awareness about this and to keep it on the radar for everybody out there in their vehicles, we will do it. But along with that, it requires more. 10 years ago, when I first got into this side of the world, we didn't have very much for sidewalks in school zones, and we started doing that program. We have quite a bit now. Spent a lot of money on it, giving kids a place off the side of the road to walk, especially on Topsail Road, say in the Topsail Elementary area, Upper Gullies Elementary area. There's people that need to walk, families that walk their children to school. We implement, radar feedback signs in areas, raised crosswalks, pedestrian activated lights so that the pedestrian has control of when they can cross. But all of that requires a partnership, really, to be effective with the driver. And unfortunately, and I know that your engineer, I'm sorry I forgot your name, but spoke earlier about how, people are driving and distracted driving, and how our world is geared for that. And they're absolutely right. People, I think generally, and not everybody, believe me, it's not everybody, but it's enough to be a big concern that people consider driving as downtime, and they try to accomplish other things while they're doing it. Yeah. And that puts everybody at risk. And I know back in the old days when cell phones were new, he's got his phone up to his head, you can see him. But sure, how do you pay much more attention if you've got the voice of somebody that's talking to you about something at work or whatever coming through your speaker system in your vehicle and you're driving along? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about what's around you and keeping close eye to that? Or are you thinking about what the person's saying to you and trying to digest that and respond to them effectively? And all of that is problematic, and that's left municipalities like ours and police and others, in a tough spot trying to combat this problem.
Before I let you go, Mayor Bent, is there anything else that, because you listed sidewalks in school areas, ways to try to slow traffic down you're talking about, but you need a partnership with the drivers of the community, and this is people of Newfoundland and Labrador, of Conception Bay South, people in our communities who are distracted drivers. Is there anything else that you can do, especially along the main, I'm just thinking the Route 60 side of things, is there anything else that can be done for slowing folks down? Because you mentioned the provincial road side of it. What else needs to be done or could be done to get traffic to slow down in your community?
Well, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that when we came in as a council, one of the first things we did was we adopted the 30-kilometer-hour speed zone in all school zones. So that's 30 effective. Doesn't matter what road you're coming in. If you're within a school zone, and we generally have called that 1.6 kilometers or a mile, I guess, in the old system. But it's 30 kilometers, and all of our streets in CBS are 40. Yeah. Only the main road that's governed by the province and Foxtrot Access are 50. But, keeping it out there, we work very closely with the RNC. We ask them to do extra patrols in school zones, being seen. I've often said to them, if you had an old police car and you put it out by the side of the road and just moved it every couple of weeks, it would help. Yeah. Because people respond to that. And we talked about, I believe you talked about photo radar and other places. And the province did a pilot project last year or a year before, and they nabbed, but they found I think 90,000 infractions in certain areas of Paradise and Mount Pearl. We have met with the province on this. We are keen to look at how it can effectively be used in Conception Bay South, and it may be an answer. I don't think anything is going to be more effective than one-on-one with the driver, and you get that, unfortunately, when they pull somebody over. But, when it shows up in your mail, maybe that affects you too as well. So it's unfortunate. We're spending a lot of taxpayers' money to slow down taxpayers, and I'd rather spend it on other things.
Yeah. We'll leave it there on that great point. Mayor Bent, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thanks, Adam.
All right. CBS Mayor Darren Bent there. Folks, what do you got thoughts? Do you live in CBS? Got thoughts on traffic safety? This is today's show on The Signal, today's call-in show. What do you think about road safety in this province? Is it the need to build better drivers, build better roads? If you have thoughts, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206. email us thesignal@cbc.ca. Let me see. We've got a text that came in. Hi, Adam. I find drivers are very aggressive with tailgating, even on the TCH. I pull off the road now when aggressive drivers are behind me. I'm doing 100 always. Not sure where these drivers are going in such a hurry. Secondly, running red lights at every light. I now lean on my horn to let them know they're being seen. And yes, I think if you're anyone who drives anywhere in this province, the tailgating and running of red lights things won't be a stranger to your vision, and I don't mean if you're the folks doing it. I mean just the folks noticing. Let me go back to my guest in studio. So there's a fair bit to unpack there, right? You have Mayor Bent. We get the text. Who wants to weigh in?
I'll weigh in because,
Sure thing.
The mayor of CBS has the right attitude.
Yeah.
The mayor of Paradise and Mount Pearl, I'm going to say, has the right attitude. When you drive through Mount Pearl, that's where my youngest day home is. The streets are 30 and 40. All side streets are 30 and 40. And I have requested this to, nope, can't be done, or just ignore the email. So the fact that he is doing that and being proactive, whereas I don't know what the city of St. John, I don't know, why they can't install signs. After speaking to RNC officers in Kenmount Terrace when they were up just patrolling, they told me there's not a whole lot of officers to patrol. And all the RNC officers that I spoke with said the easiest thing to do, they'd be able to ticket more, is lower the speed limit to 40 within the subdivision. And there's a school going up there, so it's going to be 30 anyway. Do it now. Plan ahead. So I applaud that mayor of CBS, Darren Bent, of making it a safer community.
Yeah, the mayor was laying out action, right? It's
Yeah.
hey, we've lowered the speed limits, we got more sidewalks, we got this, we got that. And you were hearing some, whether you agree with it or not, you're hearing some vision and planning from the mayor of Conception Bay South. Miles, any thoughts on what he was saying there?
There's a fun word that I wish had a chance to talk to Mayor Bent, through traffic. So he brings up a good point. I've personally worked on about 100 kilometers of road in CBS with the contracting company over the years. We've rebuilt Legion Road. Anyway, built a bunch of roads. Some of the roads now have traffic calming, but the main route is a provincial highway. He has no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And the provincial government goes, we don't care what the town thinks. We're putting a 4-lane road in. You don't get an option. We are doing this. And you'll notice parts of CBS does not have a left turn lane. It's like parts of the old strip of Gander. They don't have lay-by lanes for cars to get out. The sidewalks are narrow, 1.5 meter. There's a lot of issues, and he doesn't have control. Now, St. John's could. St. John's could say there's no more through traffic on Great Eastern Avenue. You must now take a circuitous route in a car, circuitous being zigzaggy, obtuse. You need to drive around multiple paths. On long-duration driving, braking, say, for example, eliminating through traffic on parts of La Marchant Road would make people who live on La Marchant Road very unhappy. But it would calm the road down very quickly because people would then naturalize to taking the Pitts Memorial Drive.
So what do you mean by that when you say eliminating through traffic? How does that work?
What you do is you basically put up modal filters or structures in the road that prevent cars from going through. You can allow buses, you can allow emergency vehicles. They're simply just barriers that make it difficult for a car to get through, and also put a camera on them. So if someone does want to drive through it, there's a lot of complicated structures you can build, like something called a bus lock. I'm not advocating for that. But simply, people almost everywhere where traffic calming is done in Europe and elsewhere in Canada and the States, people get angry at first and then they go, oh my God, this is amazing. My street is quiet. It's calm. I can walk my dog without my dog losing his mind on every car going down the road. We have a lot of highways in St. John's. Push the cars there. And, when we do through traffic, especially in front of schools, there should be no through traffic at schools. There's Mundy Pond Road is a busy road. Great. Right above it, just one road up, Empire Avenue, no schools. Put the traffic there.
Yeah.
There's many options. But again, we go back to there's a poison in engineering traffic management to never slow a car down. Look at Team Guizhou Highways Phase 3. It's a bunch of money being spent to save 4 minutes. Is 4 minutes worth $35 million? It was originally supposed to be $45 million, but the contract came in really oddly low. But there's options that could have done the same work for a third or a tenth of the cost, depending on what way you want to manage it. It comes down to how much money are we willing to spend to save a bit of time. And I'm saying let's start spending money to make other options viable, because that same La Marchant Road scenario, you cut the road off, now someone can cycle down that road safer, or walk a dog, or use an e-scooter, or take a micro car. I don't care. But there's no need of having heavy highway traffic on an internal city street.
Got a couple notes in. We got this email. Yep, I lived somewhere where the driving was even worse than here. I wonder where that is. They eventually installed cameras in many places, which definitely helped, except for those who were willing to pay the ticket regardless. Yeah, I guess, depending on how much money you have. So increase the cost of speeding tickets and install cameras despite the cost. Oh, and can we please stop tailgating? There is an actual distance that drivers are supposed to maintain for safety, but I don't think people realize or care about that. And people who actually do the speed limit often find a car right on their rear bumper. Agree about reducing speeds in residential neighborhoods. A great topic. Thank you so much for that email. And I'll jump right to another text. So folks, by the way, the email, if you've got thoughts on this, the signal at cbc.ca. The text line 709-327-8206. Call 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. We're asking you today the topic, what do you think about road safety in this province? Text, and it's a long one. Hello, the danger on our roads is a mishmash of the factors mentioned at the beginning of your show. Great topic. My question would be to the powers that be is this. When our roads are constructed, are there actual road engineers employed to construct our highways, taking into consideration our geography, terrain? There has been occasions where sections of roads were replaced because they haven't been properly constructed, i.e. banked on a turn. Do we just replace pavement by chewing up old asphalt, replace with no consideration to give the fact of correcting construction? With regards to the ruts, I don't think we are repairing any roads with the same quality of pavement. Before I go back to Amanda, Miles, your nice little chuckle there. I'm sure you have a bunch of thoughts as well. So
this one I'll be quick with. So ruts is a simple factor. Vehicles are now about 20% heavier than they were 30 years ago, and that's actually not 20% of the damage. That's multiple force factors. A big person on a bike is a millionth the mass of a car in terms of road damage. Vehicles are getting heavier. What used to be a 1,400 kilogram car in the 1970s was heavy. Now the average SUV is north of 2,200 kilograms. That's a big amount of mass. And the traffics are we have studded tires. There's a whole bunch of issues with rutting. And also the last thing I'll say is we used to use asphalt from Venezuelan tar pits. We ran out of that in the 1990s. So the world ran out of high quality asphalt. Now we use basically the bottom gunk on oil, like oil processing.
So this is why, like, perhaps if you're driving through, I don't know, certain sections of like federal parks, national parks, right? And even though the asphalt looked really old, you're like, gosh, this looks really good. And then you get to the provincial stuff and you're like, oh, this is less. Okay.
Yeah.
I always wondered that.
There's a road design and the way we repair roads is also a whole different topic. But anyway.
Another show in it. I'll have to have you back for that one. Amanda Power, any thoughts on just the few things that have been coming in from texts and everything else?
Just like with tailgating and things, like we put the speed bumps in on Ladysmith and you hear people complain, oh, I got to go over 6 speed bumps to get home. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Point. That's the whole point. Like, but when I come up, I will slow down for the speed bump. And you can watch people as they slow down for the speed bump that there's a car or usually a truck. I'm not saying anything about truck drivers, but it's usually a truck coming up from Kenmount Road, speeding up, and the car is slowed down and they're riding the butt of the other car.
Yeah.
And even my brother, who's down from Alberta, would look out the window and be like, do people not know you have to be like a full car length behind? Because
and he's from Alberta.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I lived up there. They can be quite aggressive with their driving, but here it just seems like I don't understand what the problem is. I think our culture has changed and the way that we think has changed and technology has changed. And I feel that both the provincial government and in the city of St. John's, where I live, have to come together to kind of figure this out, because the provincial government needs to help municipalities change the way people drive. If you change it within like where you live, maybe by the time you get out on these provincial highways, it may change. You're allowed to do 100 there, but they need to change the way that we all think.
When I lived in cities that had really good public transit systems, and I'm talking about Seoul and Tokyo, this thought came to me preparing for the show today. When I would take the subway to and from work, right? Doesn't matter, how much of a rush I was in. I kind of stopped thinking about that in a way because the subway was going to get me there however fast it was going to get me there. And then everything else was gone. It was just about me getting to that train on time and the rest of it. So like it wasn't me trying to speed perhaps in the morning getting to work if I'm late, because I was just in this different thing that was completely out of my control. And I think that this fits with part of the conversation, and from Miles, some of what you were talking about, if you've got, or Amanda yourself as well, if there are speed bumps or if there's no through traffic, but once stuff gets changed, then folks' perceptions around it can change as well, because there is no choice in it.
And public transit is productive time. Much as people don't want to say it, you can watch a show. You can be on the internet making comments on CBC posts that are nice and happy. You
can be listening to the Signal at your leisure, even when it's not live on the CBC Listen app. Right? It is there, folks. And seriously, though, it is on the CBC Listen app, so you can listen to us at any time. And we YouTube the show. This one right now that we're doing right now, the cameras are on. Later today, latest tomorrow morning, will be up on the CBC Newfoundland and Labrador YouTube page. We've got our own The Signal playlist. Got this email that came in, subject driving, so I'm fairly certain it has to do with the show today. If drivers were required to redo their driving tests on a regular basis, e.g. every 3 to 5 years, most of them would definitely fail and redo the test in various residential and or commercial zones. So that's another suggestion into the show. Oh, and a follow-up from the previous one, the traffic, which was worse somewhere else. Doha Qatar was the person who... Thanks for the follow-up on that. I love when people continue to listen when I ask extra questions. Thoughts? Amanda's like, I had something, but then Adam distracted me by saying Doha.
I'll go back to something that was a very interesting thing. So on the Streets of Our People database, we're the largest single database in Newfoundland for a bunch of infrastructure data, including the speeds of every town on the Northeast Avalon. And St. John's sticks out as a very bright 50s everywhere minimums. Mount Pearl, 30s and 40s. Paradise, Portugal Coast, St. Phillips. Well, Paradise has some restricted zones, and CBS. Now, I talked about through traffic elimination. Even without that, when I talk about slowing a speed limit down, I would be an advocate for any street that's not a main road being 25 max. The reason being, people do speed. Yep. And you're going to always find about a 10 to 15 kilometer or about a 20% speed boost of what people think they'll get away with it, because the limits, the risk of, it's only one demerit point. What's the chances? So you drop that speed limit low. But when I tell that to people, they go, it'll take so long to get places. It actually makes, so I was talking earlier about, say, a 24-minute commute becoming 27-minute. This only changes speed limit, like total travel times, by mere seconds, because you're only on a local street 4 seconds.
Yeah, it's not much.
I go from my personal street to on a main road in about 20 seconds, and I can stay on that main road till I got here to CBC. When I visit my friends, I am almost always on a highway or on a major road, and then all of a sudden I'm on a local street and I'm there. So we need, it's such an easy fix for the city to do. You go into, say, CBS, and, they have the signs there. The speed limit in this town is 40 unless posted otherwise. Because St. John's will tell you, Amanda, we can't afford 14,000 signs. That's so many signs. They don't need it. They just need to simply say, this road at every major intersection on Columbus remains 70. Your other side roads are 50s, a couple. You'll need some signs, but you don't need thousands and thousands of signs.
I agree, 150%. We'll agree with that. And I sent the city, how reducing speed limit by 10 kilometers can save a life. If a kid gets hit crossing the road and the person is doing 50, their chances of survival are 1 in 10. So very low. If you put it down to 30 and 40, they will survive.
Yeah, it goes up. Yeah,
right? So you're providing them with research-based evidence from other cities, other jurisdictions. I mean, I've lived in other parts of Canada where traffic calming, where there's bump outs, there's roundabouts within all the neighborhoods outside, like Calgary, for instance. You use a highway to get to wherever you're going. So you got Crowchild Trail, you got Bow Trail, you got the Deerfoot, you got all these north, south, east, west roads. Here, people are going to use Kenmount Road, Pitts, Columbus, all of this, but then they're still going to want to bypass sections and use Great Eastern. So why not make Great Eastern a one-way street, Ladysmith a one-way street, or a toll street? I don't care, but they need to do something with these busy streets in order to prevent something horrific from happening, which is going to happen.
We got one more call to get to, but briefly, Miles, before.
Yep. This is, I believe, the most lethal year in Newfoundland and Labrador's history for pedestrians since before I was born.
Okay.
So this has been, I believe, we're at 8 deaths from pedestrians and cyclists in Newfoundland and Labrador this year so far. 3 in August alone. So things are not getting safer. And yeah, you're right. Like small speed, big save. It's 80% lethality at 50 kilometers an hour, and it drops down about 15% at 30.
Okay.
So it makes a big, and the grill height makes a big difference too.
Big difference there. Marina's on the line from North Point. Hi.
Hi, Norris Point.
Norris Point. Yeah, I was like, where's North Point to? Norris Point. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
There you go. Hi, I'm phoning from the rural perspective. The big problem I see now, like on Route 430 coming out of Deer Lake, they've redone the road. The road between Norris Point and Rocky Harbour has been redone. But what they've done is they've so narrowed the shoulder and deepened the ditch that there's nowhere to pull over. If you were to get a flat tire, you cannot pull over safely. There's not enough shoulder to use. And I want to know whose genius idea this was, narrowing the shoulders and deepening the ditch. We had an incident where an ambulance in the winter where the ditch was covered by snow pulled over to check something and actually went in the ditch and the ambulance went sideways. I mean, it's crazy what they're doing. And every time they redo roads, this seems to be their model.
Great question. Thanks for the call. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I'll put it to my guests here, and we'll see about it. I think, again, John Pike, the tech of the show, was just telling me, I think we drove by some of that work being done. Marina from Norris Point, thank you so much for the call. All right, Miles, thoughts on it? You made a reaction.
That's a pretty common thing. So what normally happens is the way the highways work when we mill and fill and pulverize and pave, if it's a pulverize and pave, i.e. take all the asphalt, crush it up, they leave it on the highway. That will continually elevate the highway over years. Out just west of Grand Falls, Windsor, the asphalt, this sounds wild, is 450 millimeters thick. That's a half a meter of asphalt because over the years, as they've regraded and retried, the problem is in an area like Norris Point, I'm from Deer Lake myself, when they are now building a road that is 30, 40 centimeters higher than it used to be over 50 years, the ditching angles for them to maintain, like they got to clean the ditches out and they can't go further away from the road because of culvert locations. So they end up making a steeper embankment. So there is a reason. It's a bad one, but it's still a reason why that happens.
So what does this mean for safety?
It gets worse.
Okay.
That's it. It just gets worse.
Thanks. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Because the scene that Marina was describing, I could, I mean, yes, we drove by it too, but like it's something that it's easy for me to picture. And whenever I drive along this, I always wonder, like, well, gosh, like if you don't have room to pull over, if it's a steep embankment, like it doesn't take much to think of what could happen, right? Amanda, any thoughts on that?
I mean, my family is from the south coast of Labrador and from Burgeo. So, like, we drove that road every year, like, to go see my grandparents. So I get what she's saying. And, like, we go to Bonavista for day trips. So it's the same down there. And even coming back from my hometown on the Trans-Canada, my little girl got sick in the back seat. There wasn't enough room on the side of the highway on the Trans-Canada to even pull over. I had to go find a turnoff. Thankfully, we're by Little Harbor, so I was able to turn in there. But I could not safely even clean her up on the side of the Trans-Canada Highway. So, I don't feel that they're fixing problems and making others.
Lots more to talk about. There's less than 60 seconds left here. Any final word from either of you today as we leave this discussion? And thanks, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
People need to be angry about this. That's it. People just need to be angry about speeding and accept a bit of risk and a bit of slowdown.
All right. Amanda?
I just want people to realize that when they're driving, there's somebody's kid on the side of the road, whether it be in a school zone, in a subdivision, wherever you are, and the provincial government and the city of St. John's need to make the roads safer.
Amanda Power, Miles Russell, thank you so much for the conversation. I appreciate you spending your lunch break with me for this today. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, folks. That is it for today's show. Thanks for the calls, the texts, the emails. These are important topics. Highway safety, road safety for the province. I hope to leave you with thoughts for today. Stay safe out there when you drive on the roads. Looking ahead to tomorrow, Friday show. First Friday of the month. Something completely different. John Gushu is upstairs right now here at the CBC compiling a list of knowledge testing questions because it's Trivia Friday. It's the first Friday of every month. It's your way to, put the rest of the world out of mind for a bit and have a bit of fun on a Friday. That's tomorrow's show. Until then, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, we'll do it all again tomorrow. Cheers.